Good afternoon. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedule to attend today's webinar. My name is Michael Nelson, and I'm a security architect at TechHeads. TechHeads is a full-service IT consultancy firm offering expertise in all areas of digital transformation, from cloud to networking to data center design. We also offer a suite of proprietary managed security services based on the CIS-20 controls framework, with the goal of helping our customers alleviate the cost and the complexity of implementing and maintaining cybersecurity operations. The topic of today's webinar is Security Best Practices for Office 365. Joining me today is Matt Sussman, a security architect from Microsoft based out of San Diego, California. Let's get started. Over the past year, everyone's way of doing business has changed. At the start of the pandemic, a significant number of businesses had to quickly move their employees from working at the office to remote locations, primarily at home. Now, months later, even as we are starting to open back up, employees will continue to work remotely for the foreseeable future. Some organizations have adopted this paradigm as the new normal and will continue to operate in this capacity moving forward. However, this has introduced additional risk to the business. Let's unpack this. First, corporate devices in use at remote locations are operating in an environment which is less secure than typically found at the office. Home networks add additional risk to organizational data. Second, the number of devices accessing corporate data has dramatically increased. Not every business was able to provide all of its users with mobile devices and have come to rely on the use of less secure personal devices. Third, there has been a dramatic increase in the use of online meetings to conduct business. Some statistics have shown this increase to have been over 400% compared to pre-pandemic levels. And then finally, the amount of social engineering attacks have also dramatically increased. The number of phishing sites and campaigns have exploded during the last months of 2020, and security researchers have seen those numbers continue to rise in 2021. Let's focus on Microsoft Office 365. Many businesses were using Office 365 in some capacity prior to the pandemic. And as these companies moved their workforce to operate remotely, Microsoft Office 365 and Teams were able to provide the technology and services to ensure business continuity. However, not without a price. The following quote by Ken Liao of Abnormal Security highlights the problem. Companies had to scramble to set up the tools and processes that allowed them to keep the lights on, so it's understandable that organizations may have rushed into Office 365 and Teams deployments without thinking through every last security ramification. In our experience, most organizations deployed Office 365 very quickly, without giving the proper consideration to securing their new way of doing business. Without proper security, organizational data is at increased risk of being compromised. The number of insecure deployments of Office 365 resulting in critical data at risk of being exposed were so prevalent, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security issued Alert AA20-120A, specifically recommending businesses harden their Microsoft Office 365 environments. TechHeads took this recommendation to heart and began developing a program to help our customers do just that. We reached out to Microsoft to partner with us in researching the best security practices for Office 365 and to develop a program for our customers to help them harden their environment and reduce the risks associated with operating in this new paradigm. Matt Sussman, a security architect who is joining us today, helped us map out the highest level of controls and best practices to be implemented, along with developing an operational program for sustaining this new environment. With the help from Microsoft, our research led us to the creation of a multi-page playbook outlining the recommended best practices for building and sustaining a secure Microsoft Office 365 environment. Now, due to the limits of time, we are not going to conduct a deep dive into every single one of our findings. However, we will be presenting an overview of the 4 major categories we believe every organization should be dedicating time and resources towards in their efforts to secure their environment and reduce risk. These are the 4 unique categories included in our Secure Office 365 Playbook: configuration, backup, training, and monitoring. We're going to take the next few minutes to unpack each category. Before we do, let me state at the beginning, we feel in order to successfully implement these best practice categories, every organization will need unique and different skill sets around people, process, and technology. We will discuss these requirements as we move forward. The first category is configuration. Our playbook calls for each protection technology identified in this list to be enabled, configured, and deployed. Microsoft's own Office 365 Top 10 Best Practices, Exchange Online Protection, Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection, Azure Identity Protection, and Multi-Factor Authentication. I've asked Matt Sussman to speak to each of these protection technologies, what they are, and if properly configured, how they can help protect an organization's Office 365 environment. Matt, over to you.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to run through some slides here with everybody. Give me just 1 second to get that queued up. And in just a moment here, you're going to see some slides and we're going to run through this. But I think it's really important that we think about, what are the fundamentals and the basics that we can do to better secure our environments. And then from there, we can explore what Microsoft has to offer inside Office 365. And these are going to be some features and products that are actually built in that you can then go through and get configured. And to kick this off, let's just talk about some of those top 10 that Michael had previously on the screen. For us at Microsoft, and really for me as a security professional, the number one thing that we can do to better secure ourselves is really enable multi-factor authentication. That is making sure that when you go to sign in to your line of business applications, whether it's your email or a financial application or an inventory or a purchasing app, that you're not only logging with a username and password, but you're also being challenged with some kind of a code. Maybe it's a text message code, maybe it's a notification from an app on your phone. And the reason why that's so important is that when a attack occurs and a compromise occurs, even if that bad guy steals my username and password, he doesn't have my smartphone, right? He doesn't have that second form of authentication to be able to complete that chain of authentication. So that's extremely important. And for us, when we look at that, Microsoft has done some research in that 99% of all identity attacks could actually be stopped and prevented if MFA, multi-factor authentication, is in the picture. So that's extremely important. And then just the second thing, I'm not going to go through all 10, but just the second thing I do want to mention is train your users. Having awareness of cybersecurity and having awareness of the risks that are out there, and then having awareness of what the potential pitfalls can be, and just what are some of the basic things as a regular end user can do to better protect the organization. Sometimes that's the difference between a successful attack and something that can be prevented and blocked. And here you can see on 3 through 10, there's a lot of other things we could be doing that honestly, this is built into the service. These are things that I just need to get set up properly, and then from there, making sure that we're monitoring it. But I'm going to go through some of these as we go through some of the slides, but just take a moment, just think about these top 10, because there's a lot of value here in terms of just better protecting ourselves. Now, one of these items is what we call Exchange Online Protection, or EOP. And this is built into Office 365. So when I have my email through Office 365, I'm using Exchange Online. And what happens is Microsoft is combining all of the telemetry that's coming in from us looking across our millions of customers and looking across all of the identities that are out there. And it's to the tune, I think nowadays, it's like 7 or 8 trillion signals every day Microsoft is gathering and crunching on. And those signals are shared back into your Office 365 tenant so that when spam and phishing email comes in, you can be better protected, and we can help filter those things out. And that's through this rich set of telemetry. But I want to peel that back just a little bit. Let's just talk about email for a moment. Let's talk about threats that are in an email. Obviously, scams, right? Hey, go out and buy these gift cards and expense it. Or, let's get somebody to actually click on a link that types in their credentials so we could steal your username and password. But a lot of times these things are actually targeted. I have a lot of war stories I could probably share with you over happy hour sometime, but many times these are targeted at folks that honestly control the money for an organization or control the intellectual property. You know, if you're a CFO or you own accounts payable or you have some kind of financial control for the company, you will be targeted. And obviously these targeted campaigns, they're very, very good. It's very interesting. Sometimes you can't even tell that they're coming from a third party. So these are all things across this attack spectrum that's coming in over email that you want to make sure you have good awareness of from a training perspective. But from a technology perspective, we can actually do a lot to prevent some of this from even coming through and hitting your inbox. And that's through some things I'm going to talk through, like domain spoofing and how we can actually look at attachments and filter those things out. And so one of the effective ways of doing this is by preventing your domain from being impersonated. So for example, if I wanted to send an email on behalf of Michael at TechHeads, I can impersonate his identity, impersonate his domain. And when I send it to you, it's going to look like it's coming from Michael. It may even have his photo, but it's not really Michael, it's me as the attacker. And there's things we can do inside Office 365 to actually prevent that impersonation from happening. And here's some examples of what we can do to make sure we look at it. So for example, if you're trying to impersonate Microsoft, you may misspell Microsoft. Now, we're all human. So when we quickly look at the address field in our email, we're going to see that it says Microsoft. It may take me a few extra seconds to look at that and say, actually, wait a second, that's misspelled. Is it really Microsoft? But we can actually filter on that and make sure that those non-legitimate domains get filtered out of the system. But that's also where training comes in. Again, the technology, no technology is perfect. It's never going to be 100%. And as an end user, I just want to maybe take a few extra seconds to just look at that and say, okay, is that really Microsoft, or is that really LinkedIn, or is it somebody trying to impersonate it? And so things to think about as you go through it. The other thing here is coming up with this defined list of names and email addresses and making sure that if there are anybody in the environment that needs to impersonate the domain, like maybe it's a newsletter, or maybe I have an executive assistant for my CEO, they can go through and make sure that they can impersonate it, but nobody else can. But one of the unique things here that Office 365 can do is what we call mailbox intelligence. And that's where we're actually looking at everybody's mailbox in your tenant, in your environment, and we're looking at who you actually communicate with on a regular basis. We're looking at your relationship between those people and the amount of volume of email that's coming through. And so then when things out of the ordinary do happen, like maybe Matt Sosman at Microsoft emails you, we're going to put up red flags. We may put up a yellow banner across your mailbox saying this is somebody you don't normally communicate with. We're going to be able to put in a lot of mitigation techniques to better protect you. And this mailbox intelligence, this is only possible when the email is coming through Office 365, because we're applying machine learning and artificial intelligence to make that a little smarter and be able to better detect things. Now, what I want to talk about next is, and by all means too, feel free to put your questions into the Q&A window. We do have folks here that are able to answer those questions. So any question you have, put them in the Q&A window. Some things I want to point out too. With Exchange Online Protection built into Office 365, we're able to put flags on your email. So here's some examples. If we see an email that looks like it might be a part of a phishing scam, we're going to tell you about it. We're going to have a red flag right at the top of your email mailbox that's going to say, be careful, this message looks like it's spam or a phishing scam. We have some other messages here that tell you, hey, it might be spam. We might tell you that, okay, this is coming from a trusted source, right? Still have your guard up, but just understand this is coming from somebody that you may trust. Or it could be something that our organization, the company, has already marked as safe. Again, it's all about user awareness. And so just by having these pop up for that end user could really mean the difference between giving into a phishing campaign versus not, and actually having an attack. Okay, so those are emails that are coming into the system that Exchange Online Protection, Office 365, can mitigate. But those are mitigating against threats that we already are aware of. What about those threats that we don't know about? We call those 0 days. So let me walk you through a great example here. Here is Patty. She's the president of my company, and she has some direct reports, and one of her direct reports is a user named Megan. And what I want to walk through is an email that is being sent to Megan from Patty. So if I'm an attacker, typically what I will do is I will try to compromise somebody at the company that is in leadership, somebody that has people reporting to them, somebody that has power, right? And so I'm going to compromise Patty here, the CEO of the company, and I'm just going to look at her mailbox, see who she communicates with frequently, and then from there I'm going to start to make my attack. So in this case, I noticed that she communicates with Megan, but I also noticed that Patty is at an event and she's having to work some kind of an event. So I am already in Patty's mailbox as the attacker. Maybe I got her username and password from a phishing email. And I'm typing up an email to Megan saying, hey, Megan, I need to get a wire transfer done so we get funds for this event that's coming up. And it's coming from Patty. It's got her email signature, and you'll see in just a moment, it's going to have her name in the from field. Now, what I'm doing is I'm attaching a document that is actually a malicious document. It's not really wire transfer instructions. When you open it, it maybe has malware in it or a virus in it that can then run on your computer and cause me to get remote access to your machine and pwn you, as we say in the business. So let's switch over to Megan's view. So this attacker impersonating Patty, the owner of the company, sends it to Megan. And look, it's coming from Patty. It's got her photo, it's got her name, even her email address. And what I see here is the email coming from Patty, but check it out. That attachment, it says ATP scan in progress. What's happening is every single email attachment coming into the environment will get what we call detonated. So there's virtual machines in the background up in the cloud that are getting created, and we're taking that Word document and we're executing it as if a human were executing it on each one of those virtual machines. And if that document exhibits any kind of strange behavior, we will actually block it from being delivered. So in this case, we found that document to contain some malicious code or a virus or whatever it may be, and we blocked it. And so we never gave the end user, Megan, we never gave her the opportunity to click on it. Look, we're all human, right? Everybody clicks. You may be in a rush. It's coming from your boss. Oh, I got to get this done because she's going to an event. And you may accidentally click on this attachment. Well, we block you from clicking on it. We're protecting you from yourself. And that's just low-hanging fruit, in my opinion. I'm going to skip over this slide for now. I'll come back to all the red text there in just a moment. Now, let's have another example. Now, attackers, they're getting smart. They know that the technology is catching up. So being able to block those malicious attachments, they know it's catching up. So now let's try a phishing technique. So we're the attacker. We're impersonating Patty, the CEO of the company. We're going to send this to Megan and say, hey, we got this event coming up, Megan. I need you to fill out this form to then ask people to register for the event. And so we're going to send it to Megan. And as Megan receives that email, again, it's coming from Patty. It's got her photo, her email address, and it's my boss. So as Megan receives it, she's going to see that it's coming from Patty. Man, she needs this done ASAP. I got to open this link. Now, if we've been trained, of course, we'd hover our cursor over it and we'd look to see what the link is. But like, again, we're all human. Everybody clicks, right? Well, what's happening in the background is Office 365, when you click on that link, it's actually scanning that website. And if it detects that that website is malicious, it's going to block you from going to that website. So in this case, we had an email coming in. It had a malicious link in it. You click on the link, and you get brought to this red page saying the website's been classified as malicious. Boom, stopped in your tracks. You're blocked, and I can't proceed. Again, we don't give the end user the ability to continue. And this is because Microsoft, and through its intelligence security graph, discovered this website was malicious. And again, this all shows up in reporting. As the IT admin, I can get alerting on this. There's all sorts of things I could do. Now, what we're doing is we're actually taking that URL that's in the email and we're rewriting it. And so because we're doing that, you're able to have this capability across really any platform. So here I am on my iPhone, and I get this email when I'm out and about. If I click on the link in the email on my iPhone, again, same thing. I get blocked because we're rewriting the URL to be scanned by Microsoft. Again, that's low-hanging fruit. That's just a very low fundamental thing. Now let's take this a step further. When you click on a link, and let's say the technology maybe doesn't catch it because nothing's 100% perfect. Well, in that case, I'm going to get brought to a page potentially that asks me to sign in. And something I want to point out is every single time you sign into Office 365, look at the address bar. If it does not say login.microsoftonline.com, you are in the wrong place. Do not proceed. Microsoft and our sign-in systems will always say login.microsoft.com. Now, when you go to sign in and you type in your username, you will be redirected to a page to then type in your password. That page will have the company's logo, if you have it set up, and maybe a background photo. Again, if you're at a web page where you sign in with your username and you do not see your company's logo and your background photo and even the verbiage, you're in the wrong place. Do not proceed. It's a malicious website trying to harness your credentials. Now, this is a legit website. So when I sign in, this is multi-factor authentication taking over. And MFA is saying, hey, we need to approve your sign-in request. So there's many different ways to get MFA. I can get a text message to my smartphone. I can have a little USB key that I plug into my computer. I can get a phone call that then asks me to type in a passcode, hit pound, and then that authenticates me. Or my favorite, I can get a push notification. And that uses the Microsoft Authenticator app on my phone. So I have an iPhone. I have the Microsoft Authenticator app installed. I also have an Apple Watch. If I'm an Android person, same thing. I have an Android version of the app and an Android watch. And when I get that push notification, it's going to ask me to authenticate. Here's what it looks like. On the left side of my iPhone, I will get this prompt that says, hey, do you want to approve or deny this sign-in request? But with my smartwatch, I also get it asked there. I love this because it's super simple, right? If my phone's in the other room or I'm too lazy to get it out, I can go to my watch, tap approve, I'm in. And so it makes it really easy to then drive adoption and training because it's working pretty seamlessly for that end user. Now, when I tap approve, that lets me in. So I had two forms of authentication. I had my password, and then I have my second factor, which is something I know and have, which is my MFA request here through the Authenticator app. So again, that's what MFA looks like. It doesn't have to be a challenge. And in fact, we don't have to prompt you for MFA every time you sign into your email. There's ways to actually make this so that it only prompts you when it matters. And that leads us into another topic in the top 10 best practices called identity protection. Now, this is going to get a little technical. I promise we're not going to go too deep on this, but I want to show you this diagram. And I know the team's going to provide access to the slides and recordings later on, so you can take screenshots if you want. But we call this approach zero trust. So let me paint a picture for you. I sign in my email every day and in my line of business app every day, but I get prompted for MFA. Well, in this new world, I can say, when you sign into the app, if you're coming from a device that is trusted, it's managed by the company, and it's compliant, it's got all the right policy on it, then it's you. Why would I have to prompt you for MFA? So a good example of that is here at Microsoft. I'm an employee of Microsoft. I have a Microsoft Asset. It's a company-issued laptop. When I sign into my applications every day, I never get prompted for MFA because I'm on a trusted and compliant device. Now, what we can do, though, is what's happening in the middle. So when you go to sign in, we're actually looking at your identity. And so we're looking to see, hey, is Matt's credentials, his username and password, is it up for sale on the dark web? What's that look like? Is he coming in from an anonymous IP address? Is he coming in from Impossible Travel, where he's logging in from where he lives in San Diego 1 minute, but the next minute he's trying to log in from London in the United Kingdom? Well, that's impossible. He can't travel there within 1 minute. So it's looking at these risky attributes. And if my sign-in activity attributes to any of these attributes, then it's going to assign a session risk score. And to boil all this down is basically what's going to happen is I can assign a policy. So I could say, okay, when Matt signs in, even though he's coming from a trusted and compliant device, if his credentials are found to be up for sale on the dark web, or if he has impossible travel or whatever the event is, then per my policy, let's block access. Let's maybe limit the access. But my favorite one is let's require MFA. So if his identity is really that risky, then let's really challenge for MFA or reset the password. So again, let's only prompt you for MFA when it really matters. That could be a game changer. Here's the other game changer about this. Check out what's happening on the right. Of course, this whole model, and I'm just giving you the Reader's Digest version. I mean, we can go deep into it, but this whole model could be applied against Office 365, obviously, but also third-party apps. Think about G Suite, Box, Dropbox, Zoom, WebEx, Slack, you name it. Even my line of business apps, my financial applications. If I have apps that are on premises, I can apply this model to those apps as well. But the key part, folks, is that it doesn't have to be a pain. You don't get prompted every time. You only get prompted when it matters. And that's just one capability here. And I'm sure Michael and his team, they would love to talk to you more about this because there's a lot of possibilities to help you be better protected. Now, on the IT side of this, there's a lot of reporting behind all these tools. And so here's an example dashboard of what that looks like. I can log in and I can see that we have some users that are flagged for risk, meaning that they've met one of those attributes, credentials up for sale on the dark web, impossible travel. And down here at the bottom, I can see what's happening. And over on the right side, I can see exactly what those risk levels are. So here I can see a user try to sign in from an anonymous IP address. We had some impossible travel taking place. Microsoft actually builds a profile on every user account. And we know that if you're trying to log in from an unfamiliar location. So I live in San Diego, California. If I go to visit the tech head team up in Portland, and I only do that every now and then, it's going to see that as being unfamiliar, and it might flag me. And so from the reporting, I can also get alerts on this as well, which makes it extremely valuable. Now, let's say a bad guy tries to log into your account and we detect that risk. Credentials up for sale on the dark web, impossible travel, etc. Well, this is what you'll see. So this is the end user experience, and you'll see that a security alert's been triggered for the account. It's because we noticed suspicious activity or we found your credentials in a public location. And when you click on next, based on your policy, it may ask you to challenge with MFA, or it may just flat out block you. And if it does block you, you would see this. And at this point, I have no choice but to call the help desk, call the guys at Tech Heads and have them reset my account. But we block you, we stop you in your tracks. Again, this is low-hanging fruit, in my opinion, and it could prevent a breach. Now, the last thing I want to show you on this is the alerting, the reporting behind it. This is pretty cool. This allows me to see on a dashboard all of this activity. Then I can create alerts to notify me. I can then create reports. So for example, one thing that we're doing with the Tech Heads team is looking at how do we create some reports to be able to show our customers how often this is happening in their environment and give you some insights. So all the data is there. But for me, as a security guy, automation is key. And everything I just walked you through, it's really automatically responding to it because these threats, they're sophisticated. These bad actors, they're good. They're using the cloud against us. They're using machine learning, artificial intelligence against us. So you got to be able to respond with automation in a second's time, not hours, not days. And that's where this technology really shines. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Michael and stop sharing. And Michael, take it away.
Thank you, Matt, for that in-depth overview of each protection technology covered in the configuration category. The next category in our Office 365 Security Best Practices Playbook is backup. Now, backup and recovery are a critical element of any organization's data protection plan, especially for data residing in the cloud. Data needs to be protected from deletion, corruption, or even being held hostage in the event of a ransomware attack. Our recommendation is to have a comprehensive cloud backup solution, providing coverage for all the elements of Office 365 environment, not just documents and spreadsheets, but everything: email messages, contacts, calendars, lists, tasks, etc. We recommend a solution that provides coverage for Exchange Online, OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams. Some additional capabilities should also include the elimination of any storage or retention constraints, allowing for unlimited backup data sets depending upon organizational requirements, 256-bit data encryption to protect the data both at rest and in transit, and if needed, to meet any regulatory compliance requirements, archiving, journaling, legal hold, and e-discovery should also be included. A comprehensive backup and recovery solution helps organizations remain resilient, providing them the ability to respond, recover, and return to productivity quickly. The third category covered in our Office 365 Security Best Practices Playbook is training. I would ask you to consider the following statistics. 91% of successful data breaches started with a spear phishing attack. 81% of hacking-related breaches used either stolen and/or weak passwords. Social engineering attacks related to COVID-19 have increased by over 400% over the past 12 months. The common element in these statistics is the human element. Organizations will invest significant resources deploying state-of-the-art technology designed to protect their organizational data. Frequently overlooked is security awareness training. All it takes is one person, not sufficiently trained, to recognize a social engineering attack, clicking on a phishing email, and the entire organization results in being compromised. With employees working remotely now and for the foreseeable future, the threats to organizational data is higher than ever. A mature cybersecurity program must include covering the human element, training users on their responsibilities for protecting organizational data, the risks to that data, how they can recognize threats, and how to respond in the face of those threats should all be included with that program. To that end, we've included in our Best Practices Playbook a partnership with KnowBe4, the industry-leading security awareness and training platform. KnowBe4 provides engaging, targeted, web-based training campaigns focused on increasing end users' awareness around current threats, the risks of working remote, risks to cloud-based platforms such as Office 365, etc. Our playbook calls for training to occur on a scheduled cadence where key security topics are covered in a consistent, repeatable manner, reinforcing those concepts over time. Recurring social engineering assessments are also included in the playbook, measuring the efficacy of the training, identifying gaps, and firming up the last line of defense in a cybersecurity program, the human firewall. The final category in our Office 365 Security Best Practices Playbook is monitoring. Maintaining a mature cybersecurity posture for Office 365 requires visibility into the ongoing operations of the organization. Let's assume the recommended configuration settings for the various protection technologies within Office 365 have been implemented. A comprehensive backup, retention, and archiving program providing resilience has been deployed. An end-user training program for building awareness of the threats to your business and end-user responsibility for protecting organizational data is in force. Now is not the time to rest easy. Mature organizations evaluate their constantly changing environment, identifying ways to enhance their security posture along with responding to suspicious or malicious activity. Let's unpack this category. The first element to be monitored is Microsoft Secure Score. This is a numerical summary of your Microsoft security posture based on system configurations, user behavior, and other security-related measures. It represents the extent to which your organization has adopted security controls in your environment, which can help offset the risk of being breached. All recommended improvement actions are organized into identities, data, applications, devices, and infrastructure. An important note, the numerical summary is not static. As new threats emerge or new security capabilities become available, Microsoft will dynamically adjust the secure score accordingly. An organization's security posture may have been adequate last week, but the threat landscape may have changed, and now additional improvement actions should be taken. Regular monitoring of the secure score allows an organization to be aware of their security posture and how it can reduce risk. The second element to be monitored is the organization's email domain. Business email compromise is on the rise. This is a form of cybercrime which uses email fraud to attack commercial, governmental, and nonprofit organizations. Many organizations unknowingly have had their email domains hijacked, where malicious actors pose as a member of their business to conduct financial scams. Financial losses and reputational damage are left in the wake of these activities. As part of our Office 365 Best Practices Playbook, we recommend your organization's email domain be monitored by a service such as Demartian to identify any suspicious activity. This will protect the email domain from being used in business email compromise attacks, phishing emails, email scams, and other cyber threat activities. The third element to be monitored are alerts generated by Office 365 Security and Compliance Center. Email alerts are generated by policy when users perform specific activities or administrative actions occur within the tenant. We believe it is critical for businesses to be aware of these alerts and to respond in a timely manner to any suspicious activity. Having eyes on glass, meaning a trained security analyst reviewing these alerts and determining which ones can safely be ignored and which ones represent a threat to the environment, is an important component of a mature security posture. There are too many stories of how a business was compromised by a malicious actor where significant financial damage was done, and yet if someone had been reviewing the alerts from Office 365, the activity would have been identified, investigated, and appropriate action taken to address the security issue. A best practice for securing Office 365 is to be reviewing and responding to these alerts in a timely manner. The fourth element to be monitored are alerts generated by Azure Identity Protection. These alerts are automatically generated when identity-based risks occur. As Matt presented, these alerts cover users, sign-ins, and other detections. These risks can be classified in several ways: atypical travel, leaked credentials, suspicious inbox forwarding rules, etc. Automated response mechanisms can be configured to mitigate detected risks, but similar to monitoring the alerts generated by Office 365, Azure Identity Protection alerts should be reviewed and responded to by a trained security analyst. Additional actions may be required to eliminate the threat to the environment. A security best practice for Office 365 is ensuring the right people have the right access to the right information at the right time. Active monitoring and responding to alerts generated by Azure Identity Protection is a way to meet this best practice. To recap, as businesses cope with the ongoing impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, dramatic changes were made in how day-to-day operations are conducted. A sudden shift moved the employees from working on-prem to working remote. Office 365 helped business ensure a smooth transition. However, in most cases, the implementation of this shift did not fully take potential security gaps into consideration. Business was just trying to keep the lights on. Unfortunately, most businesses are still operating in this paradigm today. In response, we at TechHeads worked with Microsoft to build a security best practices for Office 365 playbook, covering the 4 categories we just presented: configuration, backup, training, and monitoring. If your business is looking to improve the security posture of your Office 365 environment, you have a couple of options to consider. Let's look at those. The first option is straightforward. Create and implement your own playbook. Do the research, explore the options, determine the right course of action, and then dedicate the requisite time and resources necessary to bring it to life. The downside for this option is the cost. This approach could easily cost your organization hundreds of hours in planning, deployment, and ongoing support. But there is another option. You could let us do it all for you. Introducing our latest managed security service offering, Think365. Think365 is purpose-built to deliver the best security practices for Microsoft Office 365. We will configure your Office 365 environment to be in alignment with security recommendations from Microsoft. We will enable and optimize the various protection technologies built into 365, such as Exchange Online Protection, Advanced Threat Protection, Azure Identity Protection, and multi-factor authentication. We will deploy a state-of-the-art backup, archiving, and retention program covering all the information stored in Exchange Online, Teams, OneDrive, and SharePoint. We will deliver world-class security awareness training along with security assessments to ensure your people understand the risks to organizational data and how they can help to protect it. And finally, we will actively monitor the entire Office 365 environment, where we identify areas where security can be improved, suspicious activity will be stopped, and overall risk to your organizational data will be reduced. If you would like to find out more about Think365 and how it can help secure your Office 365 environment, call us today at 503-639-8542 or send us an email to sales@techheads.com. We can present you with additional information and an immediate quote. Let's get started securing your data today. I would like to express my thanks to Matt Sosman from Microsoft for his help, and to you for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen to this presentation. Let TechHeads help you protect that which is most important to your business, its data. Have a great day.